My fellow Americans, hey, good morning. What do you say? Wednesday, January 15, and great to see you today. Welcome here to the Bill Press Show, coming to you live all across this great land of ours. You can follow us on Free Speech TV if you got a satellite dish on the Dish Network or DirecTV, of course. We welcome you to the program, and on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV, on this Wednesday. Well, you know, remember that phrase, compassionate conservative? Hey, it doesn't exist anymore. Senate Republicans yesterday shot down two different proposals to extend unemployment benefits for the 1.3 million Americans who lost them on January 1. These Senate Republicans, what the hell? They've got a job. They don't care about anybody who doesn't have one. They just don't care. Christie gave his big State of the State address yesterday. But, of course, the black cloud of scandal hovered over the podium while he was speaking. And everybody wonders when his former chief deputy, Bridget Ann Kelly, is going to come forward and give her side of the story. And meanwhile, at least one other mayor, the mayor of Jersey City, has said he also experienced political payback from Governor Christie's office. Maybe this was their M.O. President Obama getting ready for his big speech Friday on NSA. New York Times reporting that he's going to go kind of soft on the NSA, not go half as far as civil liberties advocates expect. And meanwhile, Senator Bernie Sanders, who wrote a letter to the NSA saying, "Are you spying on me?" The NSA responded yesterday and said, "We can't tell you because telling you would violate your right of privacy." What nonsense. Lots coming up here, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Hang around.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov. If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat?
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Twice, not once, but twice, Republican senators killed any chance of extending unemployment benefits yesterday in the United States Senate. Whatever happened to the compassionate conservatives? God, bring George Bush back. Hey, good morning. I never thought I'd say that. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you today. Here we go. Another 3 hours of the Bill Press Show in the middle of the week, right here on a Wednesday morning, January 15. So good to see you today. Hope you're doing okay. I hope you're doing better than okay. And thank you for starting your day here with all of us on the Bill Press Show to do our little hopscotch around the globe, around the country, around the nation's capital, find out what's going on, and then talk about it. You join the conversation anytime by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. You join the conversation by sending us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, as sassy as they may be, and on Facebook.com as acerbic and acidic as they may be, at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. What the hell? We don't care. Agree or disagree, like or don't like. We want to hear from you. I'm coming to you live on your local Progressive Talk radio station. Of course, we are your morning Progressive Talk radio program in this country, the only one. And we also can be seen on Free Speech TV. If you've got a satellite dish in town or out in the country, go to the Dish Network or DirecTV and watch us on Free Speech TV, or why not, if you want, on the video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Enough of that. We got Peter Ogburn here leading the team. Good morning, Peter. With morning, Elisa Murphy running the board there.
Good morning.
And Alicia Cruz, she's there to take your phone calls, put you on the air, and Cyprian Bolding with our videographer keeping the video cams going for Free Speech and TawkrTV.
That's
what
right.
do you mean? We got the whole team here, right? And I think, the Chris Christie scandal goes on, but more importantly, so does the Bill de Blasio scandal. That's the one that we are more interested in.
Can't believe it.
The poor guy going out to meet some constituents in Staten Island. He wants to show he's a man of the people. Where does he go? He goes to the pizza parlor, not to some, white tablecloth, fine food, gourmet dining, if that exists in Staten Island. I'm not sure that you could find that in Staten Island. Goes to the pizza parlor, sits down with some good folks there. They order a couple of big pizzas. His pizza, I just found out he had smoked mozzarella and sausage.
All right.
That's what he ordered. But he made the big mistake of eating his pizza, according to some people, eating his pizza with his knife and fork. Jimmy Kimmel last night says, hey, that's not how we eat pizza.
Jimmy Fallon.
This is Jimmy Fallon, New Yorker. Sorry, right.
He was spotted eating a slice of pizza with a knife and fork. New Yorkers are really upset about this. Because everyone knows the correct way to eat pizza is hunched over a trash can on the street after a night of drinking. Let's go get another slice. I love you.
That's universal. That's not just New York. That's universal.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Jumbo Slice here in D.C., which is like the same thing.
I know. But, and just to show you that this scandal is not going away, Maureen Dowd's column this morning in the New York Times, a whole column about Bill de Blasio and the pizza, Tines That Try Men's Souls, is her headline. And she admits, right, that I know it's wrong. I'm just saying, Maureen Dowd says, I do it too. Like I admit it, I do it too. I eat pizza with a knife and fork because I want only the gooey stuff on top, not the crust.
Why eat pizza if you're not going to eat the crust?
Yeah, that's kind of a little sissy there, don't you think?
That's a terrible defense.
Maybe she's thinking that's a way of that's a diet pizza, right?
I don't do carbs.
Yeah, right.
You get a bowl of sauce and cheese then.
What do you think the mozzarella is?
Yeah, right.
No,
Come on.
But I do like. And by the way, this is what I didn't know until I read her column. I remember I told you I will start when it's hot, like with a knife and fork, and then pick it up.
Which I can't defend, but I understand.
I do that too. I think you have to. Sometimes it's too hot.
That's what de Blasio did.
I understand.
He did, and I haven't read that in any of the stories. He started with a knife and fork, and then he picked up the pizza.
Yeah.
And so he said, that's the way we do it. I like that. At any rate.
I understand that. I can't defend it.
De Blasio is still my liberal hero.
The thing about not eating the crust, no, you can't defend that.
Yeah, come on, Maureen.
That's just way far. That's too far out.
If you don't want the crust, don't order the pizza.
Order pizza.
All right, you got it. Hey, coming up, David Jackson from the White House joining us this hour. Reporters in from Huffington Post, Politico, and Yahoo News. And then Congressman John Tierney, good congressman from Massachusetts, will be here in studio with us. Bernie Sanders shaking up the NSA. Wait till you hear about that. But first,
this
the wind-up.
Full Court Press.
You're on fire today. I like it. Just a couple of other stories making news. Yesterday afternoon, both Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and Governor of California Jerry Brown talked about earthquake safety. Not pizza. Earthquake safety in California. They outlined an ambitious plan to sort of strengthen vulnerable older buildings and how they can create a new fault map is one of the things that Jerry Brown talked about. Well, about an hour ago, a 4.4 earthquake hit Fontana, California, just east of Los Angeles. Los Angelinos who are on Twitter are already talking about it this morning, saying that they felt it. There have already been a couple of aftershocks, but it was definitely one that they felt.
Fontana on the Inland Empire. Let me tell you, having been through my share of earthquakes, both in San Francisco and especially in Los Angeles, they got a long way to go for earthquake safety.
Yeah.
You know, when those things hit, man, phew, you know they're there.
Business Insider came out with its national list of the states where people are moving to and from.
Oh.
They took a look at data that was collected from United Van Lines, inbound and outbound moving data, right?
Yeah.
So here's where people are moving. Number one on the list, want to guess?
Washington, D.C.
Oregon. Oregon, number one. More people are moving to Oregon than anywhere else. Number two, South Carolina.
No,
people are
really?
actually moving to South Carolina. Number three is North Carolina. The top three states that people are moving away from:
Oklahoma,
New Jersey is
really?
one. That people are
Number
moving away
one.
from.
Even before the
Before the
Bridgegate?
Christie thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Number two is Illinois. And number three is New York.
Why?
Who knows? But
Yeah.
they're moving away from it.
Now, how many are moving to Alabama?
Ooh, we don't have the data on that.
Oh, I was just wondering.
I don't think people are rushing there. I think people are rushing there. And Australian Open tennis organizers are being criticized for forcing players to compete in intense heat as the temperatures yesterday hit 107 degrees in Melbourne. Frank,
Yeah, this is the other side of the polar vortex. We were
That's
talking
it.
about the cold weather
Yeah.
here, and people said there's no global warming. Meanwhile, they had like 120 degrees in some places in Australia.
here's how bad it was yesterday during the match. Frank Dancevic from Canada required medical attention. He fainted in his first round match. Caroline Wozniacki's water bottle melted on the court. Her plastic water bottle actually melted on the court.
Then,
Ball boys
then you
and
you should not be playing tennis.
If plastic is melting
Yeah,
where you
right.
are participating in sport,
no.
you shouldn't
Right.
be there. Yeah. And Serbia's Jelena Jankovic actually burned her butt on an uncovered seat. She sat down on the seat that was like metal or plastic. It didn't have a cover on it, and actually burned her rear end.
Yeah, no, they should not be playing tennis. All right. Yes, indeed. Big news on several fronts yesterday about the NSA. It's all building up kind of to the president's speech on Friday on what reforms he will propose for the NSA in light of the Edward Snowden scandal. And we'll get to that in just a minute or so. But the first big news was Bernie Sanders. You know, I've said this before. I'll say it again. We need 100 senators like Bernie Sanders. He is right on every single issue, and he is fearless. He's out there really defending the middle class, defending the poor, defending people on Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare and in the military. He's just a crusader. So he came out and on constitutional protections also, particularly on the right of privacy. He was one of the most critical and the first to really go after the NSA after the Snowden revelations. And he wrote them a letter last week, finally, and the build up to that. He wrote him a letter last week. He asked a very simple question. Are you spying on me? Because, we know they're spying on the world leaders like Angela Merkel. They're spying on all of us, getting all of our phone data. Bernie says, are you spying on me? Well, the NSA wrote back yesterday. He got a letter back yesterday from the NSA. This is laugh out loud funny, I think. And the NSA said, we can't tell you whether or not we're spying on you because to tell you would violate your right of privacy. That is right out of Mad Magazine.
It really is.
No, I mean, come on. So they claim that to find out if they're spying on him, they would have to break into the records and look at whose phone number is attached to which United States senator. That would violate his right of privacy. But notice what they don't do is they don't deny they're spying on him, which means they are spying on him. Of course they're spying on him, like they're spying on all of us. So Bernie wrote back to them basically and said, look, I've got legislation in here which would prohibit mass collection of phone data without a warrant from a court saying we need this for this reason because we suspect this particular person. But what happened with Bernie proves why we need that legislation. Item number one. Don't you think? 866-55-PRESS. They're spying on you, you You're damn right they're spying on you. The other item is Edward Snowden got a little recognition yesterday. Daniel Ellsberg, he of Pentagon Papers fame, of course, announced that the Freedom of the Press Foundation has invited Edward Snowden to join their board. And he will now be one of the directors of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which Daniel Ellsberg created himself. We're not sure how many board meetings Edward Snowden will be able to attend unless they're held in Moscow. And thirdly, the New York Times reporting, now we get to the president's speech. I'm not surprised, but I must say I'm disappointed. They always leak ahead of time what's going to come in these major speeches because they want to judge some public reaction to it. I hope the public reaction to this is so bad that the president will get a little more backbone. But according to the New York Times, the president is going to announce some minor reforms to NSA spying practices, but he will reject most of the recommendations that came from that high-level intelligence community panel that he appointed, his own panel. Remember, they recommended that, since the phone companies keep all this data, that data should stay with the phone companies, not with NSA. And if NSA, because they think there's somebody with a terrorist connection, they want to track down a particular phone number and particular phone calls, they have to go to the court, they have to show the evidence, and then they get the information from the telephone companies, which I think is the best protection that we could have. President Obama is not going to recommend that at all. Instead, he's going to say that there should, among other things, there should be a public advocate in the FISA courtroom, so when NASA asks for exceptional and even greater spying opportunities or access to our private records, then somebody will be there to argue on our behalf. Yeah. Does that make you feel a lot better? Not me. It's still a closed court.
Yeah.
The media's not in there. So how can we even count on this guy, he or she, to do the job? How do we know what kind of a job, how good of a job they're doing? And how do we know they're even going to get a fair hearing? So the program, according to the New York Times, the president is trying very hard to straddle a difficult line in hopes of placating foreign leaders and advocates of civil liberties, that's us, without a backlash from national security agencies. You know, again, if that's the way it comes out, too bad, and shame on Obama. I mean, this is a time to really stand up and say, I'm here to defend the Constitution, and NSA is out of whack and out of control, and we've got to rein in our spying agencies. I think what's happening right now is the spying agencies, the NSA, the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the CIA are running the show, and President Obama is afraid of taking them on. This is at one time, I must say, when I'd like to see a president with the chutzpah of Christie, who would not be afraid to piss some people off. I mean, he went to the Jersey Shore with President Obama. He didn't care what Republican critics say. And I think on this NSA issue, that President Obama has got to go to the welfare of the American people and be willing to take on the intelligence agencies. Does Bernie Sanders show us the way? Are they spying on you? You're worried about this obvious power that the NSA has to be able to do kind of any spying they want and get away with it, and President Obama not willing to take them on. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it here Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend.
As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. By the way, there's one other. We're talking NSA leading up to President Obama's speech on Friday. And the big news, Bernie Sanders yesterday being told by NSA, we are not going to tell you whether we're spying on you or not. You know they are. Every member of Congress and every U.S. senator, just like every American's phone records are being collected and stored by NSA. There's one other headline right alongside in the New York Times about the headline that Obama is going to go soft on the NSA in his speech on Friday, which is a little disturbing. We'll have to look more into this, but the headline tells you you better be careful now. NSA devises radio pathway into computers, reaching targets cut off from the internet. Every time you turn around, you know, their sphere of activity just gets broader and broader and broader, and our right of privacy gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it totally disappears. Carol, out in Dillon, Montana. Hey, Carol, good morning.
Good morning. I got an idea. Let's get a hold of Bernie Sanders, find out what the phone number of the NSA is, and broadcast it.
Well,
and
you know
everybody
what?
in the country call them.
Yeah, that's what we ought to do. I don't even know what. Let me tell you, I'm sure the number's not listed, Carol. But
And if they're listening, I don't care. I'm a 73-year-old great-grandmother, and I don't really care what they listen to. All I talk to is my family.
all right. Well, you should care, Carol, because they have no right to be listening even to the calls to your family. That's what the right of privacy is all about. And besides, you know, you might say something to a member of your family. I know that I have, that I would not want the entire world to know. Yeah. Bernie Sanders on the warpath against the NSA. We need more people like Bernie. Are you spying on me? He asked a simple question, and he can't get a straight answer. Let's talk about it more. 866-55
Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Things are starting to percolate here on the NSA. Edward Snowden getting appointed to the board of a privacy organization founded by Daniel Ellsberg, the Freedom of the Press Foundation. President Obama gearing up to talk about, give his recommendation, his plans, what he's going to call for reforms of the NSA. Reported by the New York Times today, he's going to go pretty soft on the NSA. And most of the hard decisions he's going to throw to Congress and say, okay, you guys debate this and you fix it and you decide how far you want to go. The president himself is not going to go very far. Why? I don't get it. I think this is crying out for strong presidential leadership. And Bernie Sanders is showing a lot of leadership. He's got a bill in that would prevent NSA from tapping our phones unless they had specific information that we were somehow connected to some terrorist group or someone affiliated with terrorist groups and had a warrant from the court to get our phone information. Bernie Sanders also not being able to get an answer out of the NSA on whether or not they are spying on him. Where do we go here? What do we do? Tim in Bristol, Vermont. Hello, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning. I think the NSA is about as useful as a hole in your shoe. They're not trustworthy, and they're a waste of money and time.
And they're huge, and they're big, and they've got a, how many billions of dollar budget, right? And what are they doing?
Yeah. Well, we've got the FBI. You can't trust them. We've got the CIA. We've had problems with them. And now we've got the NSA, which is bigger than both of those.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to say about it?
I know. And we have 16 different intelligence agencies. And look, the one time we needed them, right, which is for September 11, when terrorists were living in this country openly in San Diego and making telephone calls, right? What do we do? Nothing happened.
9/11, another country had to tell us what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree, Tim. So what do we need them for? A good question, and a question that Congress ought to decide. You know, what gets me is this phrase here in the New York Times. The president is afraid, he's trying to avoid a backlash from national security agencies. Okay, so like, who's in charge?
Right. Being president is tough. It's a tough job.
Who's running the show? Right? Oh, we can't do this because the Department of Transportation is not going to like it. Who cares? We can't do this because the National Intelligence Agency. Now, look, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. This is a big monster bureaucracy it's not just the CIA and not just the NSA and not just the FBI. I couldn't even name you all of them, but there are 16 different intelligence agencies, and they're now under the director of. Now we have a director of national intelligence, which we never had before September 11. But I don't see that he's. This is Mr. Clapper, General Clapper, right? I don't see that he's making anything better. He's just, I think, consolidating power, and he's the guy, remember, that went in front of the Senate and committed perjury, lied to members of the Senate. At any rate, we're going to hear more about this, talking more about the NSA all this week as we build up to the president's speech. There is one other big issue, that we haven't talked about yet here, but is not so far from happened not so far from here, Washington D.C., and that's out in Charleston, West Virginia. They finally have water, I believe, although some people are still a little nervous and skeptical about using that water, particularly those with children. But you know what happened? There was a chemical spill from a plant into the river just upstream from where they take out the water for the main drinking supply for Charleston, West Virginia. That entire city was shut down. Nobody could use any water whatsoever except water that was brought in, I guess, by the National Guard, where they could go get a couple of gallons a day. But not for drinking, not for bathing, not for washing their teeth, not for making coffee, not for cooking. Restaurants closed. Everything basically. I've never heard of anything like that. Imagine if that had happened in New York City, or Philadelphia, and so this is not. This is something that people could see coming, I guess. I mean, it came not as a surprise to some environmental advocates and clean water advocates in West Virginia who've been warning for years. Hey, we got a problem here. Why, and this is the third major chemical accident in the last 5 years. They call that area Chemical Valley. There were repeated recommendations from federal regulators and a local environmental advocacy group that the state adopt rules to safeguard these chemicals to make sure that they were properly stored so they could not leak into the water supply. And those recommendations and those warnings just went unheeded by local authorities in West Virginia, and we see what happened. So get this. Yesterday, John Boehner is asked whether the Congress might do anything about this, right? I mean, you got a public safety, an obvious public safety problem here. Would this be a role for Congress? John Boehner says, "No, what? Me worry about this?"
Why wasn't this plant inspected since 1991? I am entirely confident that there are ample regulations already on the books to protect the health and safety of the American people. Somebody ought to be held accountable here.
Yeah, or maybe John Boehner ought to be held accountable. Yeah, I mean, this idea, right? Obviously, because this spill happened, there are not adequate regulations in place. Now, there may also be a problem with enforcement, granted, but the fact that they were able to locate this plant, to build this plant upstream from the city water intake, hello, right there. I'm not in Charleston, West Virginia, but I know that that's obvious. One obvious example of one regulation is missing, right? where they put these things. But this is repeated. This is repeated in city after city after city across this land.
Yeah, I mean, we had that big fertilizer plant that exploded in Texas, and all the stories that came out of how under-regulated that was. But it's just this knee-jerk reaction from some politicians. You say, "Oh, no more regulations, no more regulations."
I've heard that since I've been involved in public policy, way back to my days working with Jerry Brown on his first time around as governor of California. It's always the complaint of the business community. There are too many regulations. We got to get rid of regulations. You don't want too many regulations, but you need strict regulations to protect the public. You cannot count on, whether it's the oil companies or the chemical companies or the electric utilities or the loggers or whatever, you can't count on them to police themselves. Certainly we have learned that lesson. And there are some places clearly where more regulations are needed. And I would have to say, I know I'm going out on a limb here, right? Maybe saying something really controversial. Don't you think West Virginia is one of those places? Yeah, they need a little more regulation in their coal industry, too, down there, coal mining industry. Yeah. Remember that?
Absolutely. There have been several coal mine disasters. Yeah,
absolutely. So, John Boehner, clueless as usual. David Jackson on the job at the White House early this Wednesday morning, as always. Covers the White House for USA Today. Joins us for his Wednesday visit to the Bill Press Show next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
You got it 13 minutes now before the top of the hour here on a Wednesday morning, January 15, Wednesday morning. That must mean David Jackson at the White House. David, good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Covering the White House for USA Today. President Obama on his way to Raleigh, North Carolina. What's up?
Manufacturing is the ostensible topic of of the day's speech. He's going to talk a little bit about manufacturing policy. First, he's going to Durham to tour some company that makes parts for electric engines. You know, the president's very much into electric cars. And then he's going over to Raleigh to give the speech at North Carolina State University. He'll talk about manufacturing policy, which is a bit of a preview of his State of the Union address. But I think he'll also call on Congress to once again extend unemployment benefits. So there'll be a political component to this as well.
Yeah, a little setback yesterday in the Senate, huh?
Yeah, but everyone knew that vote was going down. I think they're still talking. They just had the vote to just see where everyone was and get everybody on the record. If you notice, the only complaint from the White House came from Jay Carney. You know, the president himself didn't issue a statement last night. Jay Carney did. So I think they're still talking up there about that.
Now, then the president comes back, and this evening, when Jay told us the other day he was going to be meeting with the Democratic senators, you know, I thought, hey, wait a minute, I thought he's in Raleigh, North Carolina Wednesday, but of course he's coming back and he'll do that this evening. The whole Democratic caucus, right, at the White House.
Yes, that's 5 o'clock, I think, late in the day. Yes, it's going to be.
That's kind of unusual, isn't it? And what's the agenda here, do you think?
Yes and no. I mean, it's just kind of a pep rally. It's a start of the year kind of thing. It's 10 days. We're about 11 days out from the State of the 12 days out from the State of the Union. So he's going to talk a little bit about that. He's probably going to talk a little bit about the NSA. You know, that speech is coming up on Friday, so he'll get some input on that. Talk about the elections, and also he's got to try to peel some votes away from new sanctions on Iran, because I think there's increasing concern about that in the White House. They don't want Congress to pass new sanctions because they think it'll mess up the negotiations with Iran.
Yeah, this is one case where some of the Democratic senators, led by Bob Menendez, of course, are really, I mean, openly defying the president.
Yeah, very much so. And in the House, too, there's a lot of Democratic support across the board for new sanctions on Iran. A lot of people don't like the temporary agreement the administration reached with Iran, and they're very suspicious of Iran. I don't know. If worse comes to worse, I think Harry Reid can keep a bill off the floor, but it is kind of an embarrassing situation for the administration.
Election year jitters on the part of these Democrats, is that it? Do you think?
That's got to be part of it. And, there's a lot of, AIPAC has been very heavily lobbying against the agreement too, so that's got to be part of a factor. I just don't think a lot of people in Congress trust Iran. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
Well, no matter how hard we've tried in the briefings, David, we can't quite get the White House to comment on the Christie scandal.
No, I don't think so. Well, you never want to get in the way of your opponent when they're burying themselves. So I don't think you'll be able to get anybody. I was a little surprised. A couple of Republican governors came to Christie's defense yesterday. There was a meeting with the executive committee of the National Governors Association, and there were 6 members. They all came out and spoke to the press, and there was a Christie question, and a couple of the Republican governors answered it. You know, we haven't heard a lot of defense of the New Jersey governor, even from Republicans, but Scott Walker and the governor of Utah both spoke up for him yesterday. So
I was surprised that the president had that meeting with the executive. I didn't know whether Christie's head of the Republican Governors Association, but the new head, but he's not a member of that executive committee that met with the president.
No, it's the NGA, the RGA. You know, the RGA and the Democratic Government Association, a little more partisan organization.
Sure.
So, the people who are more interested in politics drift to that. The people who are more in the nuts and bolts of governing tend to go to the NGA.
Now, you mentioned the president's speech on Friday. He's had just a whole host of meetings and a lot of behind-the-scenes work on this speech, which he's going to give at the Justice Department. New York Times reporting this morning, if you saw it, I'm sure, that don't expect the president to go too tough on NSA here.
No, not at all. Well, you'll notice he's giving on a Friday before a holiday weekend, so it's not. This is not a heavily promoted speech. It was all we could do to find out where the speech is going to be at. It's going to be at the Justice Department. But no, I'm not expecting anything. You're seeing a lot of pushback from the law enforcement community. If the FBI Director James Comey made a point of going on the record to say he doesn't want too much restrictions on these national security letters. I'm hearing that the NSA is pushing back quite a bit on some of the proposed reforms, and I heard yesterday on the Hill, the secret court also raised some questions about some of the proposals that are floating around. So there's a lot of pushback from the intelligence community, and I'm sure the president is listening to those too. So I would expect some modest changes.
But the panel that he appointed, their recommendations, they had a pretty robust set of recommendations, 46 of them. Including leaving all this information with the telephone companies that NSA couldn't access unless they had a warrant to do so.
Well, that's one thing he may actually go for. That may be the lead of the story on Friday. He may try to set up a new system to kind of insulate those telephone records from government control. I think that's something he's actively considering, and it's almost a dead certainty that he's going to recommend some changes to spying on foreign leaders. So I think you'll definitely see some changes there. And he may go for the public advocate thing too. So there'll be some there'll be some changes, but I don't think they're going to be. I don't think there are going to be as many changes as his own panel recommended, and certainly not as many as a lot of civil libertarians want.
Right, and according to the Times, he's going to throw a lot of this stuff to Congress, right, and saying, "Well, we're not sure what to do about this."
That's another thing.
You guys decide.
He has an option on that. Some of the stuff he can say, I think some of the stuff he can do on his own, but I think that's correct. I think he is going to kick a lot of it to Congress, which is another reason for this meeting.
Yesterday, in his sort of off the cuff comments, he said, "I got a pen and I got a what is it? I've got a pen and I've got a phone." Right. Which sort of was a threat to a lot more executive action this year, huh? Or a promise.
Very much so. Of course, they've said that before. Well, I think he's going to have to. I just think that, given the elections and given the divided Congress, I just don't think there's going to be a whole lot coming out of there, especially now they've got the budget deal done. Once they get past the debt ceiling, which I think they'll reach an accommodation on that, I just don't see a whole lot happening up there. So he's going to have to do some executive orders, just as he did in 2012. With the immigration thing. I mean, this isn't particularly new. I'm not sure how much good the phone is going to do him. He says he can rally a lot of groups to put pressure on Congress, but I'm not sure how effective that's going to be. But the pen is something to definitely keep an eye on.
Right. And finally, I saw, I don't know who reported it this morning, that the president is trying to set up a meeting with the Pope later this year.
I've been on that for a couple of days. I think that's one of the reasons Kerry went over there, was to try to grease the skids for that meeting. I don't think there's much doubt. I know the president wants to. Jay Carney's confirmed that. It's a question of arranging the schedules. I think the president's going to be in Europe for maybe a G8 meeting in June or something like that, and I think it's at The Hague. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure it's at The Hague. So it's just a short hop, skip, and a jump to Rome from there. So I think that's kind of what they're looking at, as a side trip to the Vatican.
He wants some of that goodness of Pope Francis to rub off on him, huh? Yeah.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, they're very copacetic on a lot of issues if you look at it. Particularly poverty. So
they can talk income inequality all day long, right?
Well, sure. You want to meet the Pope? I mean, come on. He's a very interesting guy. Who can blame him?
Listen, absolutely. I'd be part of that trip. All right. David Jackson, no briefing today. I'll miss you today, but I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. David Jackson at the White House.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Show.
All right, Chris Moody from Yahoo News. Here's a friend of Bill for the next hour, Peter.
I don't know if you've heard about the latest celebrity on Capitol Hill, Bill. It's the fox.
Oh, yes.
That is inhabiting the Capitol Hill grounds where the United States Capitol is. People have seen it sort of roaming around. They've got a couple of pictures. Someone even saw it take down a squirrel.
Yes.
And have for lunch. Be on the lookout if you're near the United States Capitol. There is a fox on the loose living around there. Just saying.
Yeah, you know, I'm very curious about this fox because we're living on Capitol Hill. I mean, you know, that fox could be in our neighborhood too. That's right. It's not that far away.
Keep an eye out.
All right. Worried.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hi, I'm Richard. You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
My fellow Americans, hey, good morning. What do you say? Wednesday, January 15, and great to see you today. Welcome here to the Bill Press Show, coming to you live all across this great land of ours. You can follow us on Free Speech TV if you got a satellite dish on the Dish Network or DirecTV, of course. We welcome you to the program, and on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV, on this Wednesday. Well, you know, remember that phrase, compassionate conservative? Hey, it doesn't exist anymore. Senate Republicans yesterday shot down 2 different proposals to extend unemployment benefits for the 1.3 million Americans who lost them on January 1. These Senate Republicans, what the hell? They've got a job. They don't care about anybody who doesn't have one. They just don't care. Christie gave his big State of the State address yesterday, but of course the black cloud of scandal hovered over the podium while he was speaking. And everybody wonders when his former chief deputy, Bridget Ann Kelly, is going to come forward and give her side of the story. And meanwhile, at least one other mayor, the mayor of Jersey City, has said he also experienced political payback from Governor Christie's office. Maybe this was their M.O. President Obama getting ready for his big speech Friday on NSA. New York Times reporting that he's going to go kind of soft on the NSA, not go half as far as civil liberties advocates expect. And meanwhile, Senator Bernie Sanders, who wrote a letter to the NSA saying, "Are you spying on me?" The NSA responded yesterday and said, "We can't tell you because telling you would violate your right of privacy." What nonsense. Lots coming up here, so give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Hang around.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today.
you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Twice yesterday, not once, but twice, senators had a chance to do something about helping those who lost their unemployment insurance, and they said, we don't care. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you this morning on a Wednesday, January 15. Thank you for getting up early. Thank you for joining us here all across this great land of ours on the Bill Press Show as we reach out to you to every corner of this country on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and on our video stream of TawkrTV. Free Speech TV on your satellite dish, DirecTV, and the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TawkrTV, and of course, your local progressive talk radio station. Hope you appreciate what a great job they're doing and support them and all of their sponsors. On this Wednesday morning, lots to talk about, lots to get into happening here in Washington before they take another break for the Martin Luther King holiday night. That's Martin Luther King holiday, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they take so many breaks, it's hard to keep track of why they're out at this particular time.
Just assume they're taking a break.
Right. With so much to cover, we need some help. We've got it this morning from Chris Moody from Yahoo News here as a friend of Bill. Chris, it's nice to see you.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Great to be
Happy
here.
New Year to you. Belated congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you very much.
Since the last time we've seen you. Here. And anything else new in your life? I mean,
Well, that's the big one, you know. So we're adjusting to that. And
it's nice that you
wonderful and
have
great.
your priorities straight here. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a new subscription to Rolling Stone. That happened too. I don't,
is that?
You know, so.
Just line them all up.
Yeah,
Right.
you know. Yeah, in no particular order.
Join the team here, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy, of course, guys. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
The Alicia Cruz there. Ready for your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding on the video cam, keeping us looking good on our video stream and on Free Speech TV. So, Denver is the center of the universe these days because of the you can go there and legally buy and consume. Don't have to make up get a doctor's excuse
I couldn't
anymore.
sleep, Bill. I promise.
To buy
My glaucoma is really acting up today.
right, to buy your pot. So CNN sent reporter Randy Kay out there, and she was on Anderson Cooper last night talking about her experience doing some serious reporting.
I've done some reporting.
Yeah, I've done extensive field research.
On the use of recreational use of marijuana. Here she is.
It was top notch. We did very extensive research, I have to tell you. My brain was a little fuzzy by the time I got out of there. Oh, yeah, I wasn't thinking right. I couldn't remember even some of the questions that I wanted to ask in the interview, which has never happened to me when I'm reporting in the field. And I found things to be really funny, much funnier than I normally do. So I think we got a little bit of a contact high there.
Yeah, you got the munchies and the giggles.
Contact. I like, when you're a kid, you're like, well, I was experimenting with drugs. And now it's like, Mom, I was reporting. I was reporting on drugs, so I did a little reporting.
Reporters everywhere filing. Can we please go to Colorado and write this story?
Yeah, we're going to do one of our big affiliates in Denver, and we're going to go out there and do a little broadcast, don't you think?
Reporting.
Oh, reporting.
Reporting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So Anderson doesn't quite know how to handle this. I think he's a little nervous. He wants her to come home here. Here's Anderson again. Following.
They are so big. When Barbara whipped it out to light it up,
joint,
nobody wanted to light it. Everybody
joint.
was afraid to touch it because it was so big. Nobody had seen such a big joint before. But Barbara at 72 had no problem just lighting it up and getting everybody involved, and they had a great time.
How much longer are you going to be there for, Randy? You moving there? Or?
I think I need to come home. I'm coming home
come back to the East Coast. Yeah, come back to the East Coast,
Do you
Randy.
think they'll know?
All right, thanks very much.
Take her down from the mountain.
You want to wash your clothes before going through security at the airport, too. I don't know. A lot of smoke. Probably
Yes.
But this, the economic benefits of the legalization of pot are yet to be told. I mean, it's just going to be massive, right? That's why I think other states are going to do it, because
Well, there's going to be some amazing
pot tourism. Is that what they call it? I guess
pot tourism. Yeah.
Some amazing public policy studies on taxation, regulation, usage. I mean, there's going to be so much data coming out of this experiment. I don't know if Colorado is very happy being the first, especially maybe Governor Hickenlooper there.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit nervous about what's to come, but someone's got to be the guinea pig, and so here we are.
Well, I think the people of Colorado
they're just fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They are very.
And if they're not, they don't care.
But it's the people in charge. It's mom and dad who have to pay the house bill and the insurance. They're a little nervous.
Right.
Kids are having a great time.
So Chris Moody here is a friend of Bill. This whole hour, we will be joined by reporters from Huffington Post and Politico. And then the next hour, Congressman John Tierney from Massachusetts stepping in. We'll get to the news of the day with Chris. But first, the big headline.
This is
Peter
the
Ogburn.
Full Court Press.
Here's an idea that may have come from some reporting in Colorado that might have inspired something like this. You've heard of the Cronut Bill, which is a croissant donut hybrid.
Yes.
They take the dough of a croissant and turn it into a donut. Well, someone has now made the Krogel. The Krogel. It is a croissant dough that they made into a bagel.
Oh, no.
Which is very hard to do, by the way, because of the flaky nature of a croissant dough. They made it into a dough, and they found a way to boil it and bake it and turn it into a Krogel.
You know, I think that's in the Book of Revelation. It's a sign of the second coming.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I don't get it. You know, I don't get it.
Yeah,
make a choice. Have a croissant, have a bagel, have a donut.
The bagel store, you have one of each. The bagel store
but, I mean,
is the place
just have
it
what you
originated.
want. You don't have to put them together.
Put them both in your mouth at the same time.
Have you had a cronut?
I waited in line for an hour and a half.
The
to get
original
one.
cronut?
The cronut from the place.
I haven't had it from the place. How is it?
You know, it's
exactly.
It's food. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It is okay.
By the way, the NFL, we talked earlier about how the NFL had come to agreement with some former players. $765 million is what they're going to play some brain-injured players. Turns out a judge got that case in front of her yesterday and said that might not be enough money, even though 4,800 former players and the league agreed on this deal. She took a look at the long-term payoff and said that this might not be enough for the players.
Good for her.
So they've stopped the deal.
It's not enough money, and the money doesn't come until like 17 years out.
Yeah. We talked to some people about it. They get some of the money within the next 3 years, and then they drag it out for
No, it's BS, I think. So good for her. Right.
And you know the show Breaking Bad, where Walter White, the chemistry teacher who started selling methamphetamines, he was known for having meth that was so good it was blue. It had like a blue tint to it, right? Well, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, they have found some blue-tinted meth actually on the streets. The Department of Homeland Security in Albuquerque came out and said that there is blue meth on the street, but it's not because it's so pure. It's because people are adding chemicals to it to advertise their product as blue meth.
Out of the TV show?
The problem is the chemicals that are used to make it blue are very, very dangerous, even more dangerous than the meth itself. It's making people very sick. So if you're going to do meth in New Mexico, don't do the blue kind.
Stick with the blue hard candy.
That's right. Just have the hard candy. Exactly.
All right. Got it. 14 minutes after the hour now. So, Chris, latest piece of yours, or one of the latest I saw, is that if you're a poor guy, you don't want to run for Congress, do you? Probably you can't run for Congress, but you'll certainly be a misfit if you get there.
Well, let's look at your definition of poor guy. Starting this year, a minority of people in Congress are not millionaires, or majority are millionaires. And that includes their net worth and everything. So it's the Millionaires Club in Congress these days, just over half. And that's the first time since records have been taken that we've seen that, and probably for the first time in history.
And the wealthiest, I believe, in the House is Darrell Issa.
That's right. He's the head of government and oversight, made a lot of money in private business. What is fascinating is how much money they make while they're in Congress.
I was just going to ask you that. How many of these were millionaires before they got to Congress?
I don't have a number for you on the data, but there are quite a few that are just suddenly become very good investors. If you wanted to start a fund, you could do the Congress Fund and just invest in things that they do, and you will do very, very well. They just tend not to lose.
Yeah, and they also, I believe, I haven't done the research, but I'll bet you they are given opportunities to invest in this business or that business or this stock or whatever that other people don't get.
Well, there was a law that passed recently called the Stock Act that allows them to, there's a little more transparency and it keeps them from doing this insider trading stuff based upon what they know from legislation. It's a step forward, but it's not comprehensive, really.
Yeah.
But they're still making quite a bit of money. It can be quite lucrative to be in Congress, and that's not because of your paycheck.
I'm reminded of, was it J.W. Plunkett or whatever from New York, the great political book where he said on his tombstone he wanted engraved the words, I seen my opportunities and I took them.
Pretty good advice.
You know, yeah. But I mean, what does it say though about their ability, if they're all millionaires or most of them are millionaires, to really understand, let alone care for, let alone, pass bills that are going to help the poor and the middle class?
Well, there is something to be said about having empathy in your legislating, of course. And a lot of these guys came from modest backgrounds, of course. But one does forget after you get deep into it, into the millions after a couple of years. And I think it would be discouraging to a lot of people that perhaps don't have a lot of money. The laws on the books really weigh in favor of those who can self-fund. That's incumbent protection programs they have going on right now. They pass laws that make it easier for them to get reelected because they're already in the club. So it is getting harder and harder to beat the big guys. But I mean, on this show, you'll talk a lot about super PACs and outside groups, but a lot of times those help little guys run for Congress on the left and the right, and we're seeing more and more. I'm not saying that people should change their minds on super PACs, but it does play into an account that we haven't seen necessarily before.
And also, being in that high upper class doesn't mean that you cannot have empathy or cannot care for the poor. Teddy Kennedy's, I think, maybe the best example of somebody who had all the money in the world and yet was the champion of the poor and working
just to relate
families.
With people.
No, exactly. Christie. We haven't talked about him yet today. He gave a State of the State yesterday. Has he put this scandal behind him?
With all the documents and leaks coming out, of course not. This is a story that's going to be going on for a long time. We need to find out all of the information about what happened, what he knew, when he knew it, and those are just going to keep coming out. And if he has misspoken at any time, he's going to be in a whole mess of hot water all over again. So for his sake, I hope he's chosen his words very carefully about what he knew and when. Otherwise, he could be in real trouble here.
Yesterday, the mayor of Jersey City came out and said that he had experienced something similar, not a bridge closure, to what happened to Mayor Sokolich in Fort Lee, New Jersey. That all this help was coming to Jersey City, the promise of all this help, and then he refused to endorse Christie for re-election, and suddenly, boom, the gates went down.
Well,
right?
if Christie,
so it seems that this was kind of the way his office operated.
If Christie becomes weaker and weaker, these mayors are going to feel more emboldened to come out and talk and tell their stories. They might have been scared to up until this point, but if more and more come out, there could be a flood of these stories. I don't know. There might not be anything there. But the more people talk, the more time you have, Christie has something he really has to face here, and it's distracting, of course, from the agenda he wants to set as governor.
You've also reported and reminded us, it was a year ago that the Republican National Committee issued what they called their autopsy report, which I thought was very funny. Use of that phrase. You don't do autopsies on people who are still alive. And they said, here's what we did wrong in 2012, and here's how we're going to fix it. And we're going to reach out to women and minorities and young people, right? And this will be the new, revived, re-energized Republican Party. What's happened in the last year?
Well, we haven't seen many direct results, but we've seen a lot of investment in these communities. They're actually working very hard to build databases and research for local leaders in ethnic groups throughout the country that they can provide to governors, to folks running for office. So they're basically behind the scenes doing a lot of data building.
But are they selling the same old crap? Have they changed their policies so that they're a little more...
No, there was very little in the change in policy in that report.
Right.
But there was, let's talk about it differently. They didn't want to talk negatively about gays as much as they had before. They want to be more careful about how they talk about women. They realized that they had a talking problem. They put their foot in their mouth thquite a bit. And they've done a lot of sensitivity training to teach them how to talk to certain groups, and they're working on it.
But I want to come back to the policies. I mean, seriously, okay. If you're still anti-same-sex marriage, if you're still anti-choice, if you're still anti-immigration reform, right, and if you're still anti, let's say, minimum wage and other things that particularly that affects the African American community, you still don't have much appeal. You may talk to them nicer, but you're still.
Well, I think on a couple of those issues,
trying to sell a flawed product.
On a couple of those issues, they're wrestling internally. Same-sex marriage, you're seeing a lot of Republicans change their position. I can't imagine in 2020. I can imagine in 2020 the Republican nominee will be pro same-sex marriage for president. It's quite possible. On abortion, they will. That's an issue they're not wavering from. The Republican National Committee's having their winter meeting next week, and most of them are going down to the March for Life on Capitol Hill. That's an issue they feel very strongly about, so that's not going. On immigration, as we've seen, you've got a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservative groups, outside groups, influential ones, Koch groups, that are saying pass an immigration bill, pass comprehensive immigration reform that also has a pathway to citizenship. So on gay marriage, immigration, no, it's not entrenched. Yeah. On a couple of the other issues, yes, but they're having an internal debate right now.
You mentioned the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, front page of the New York Times this morning, and you've been reporting also on some of their extensive Political activity, well-funded, of course, because they got all the money in the world. Chris Moody here with us from Yahoo News. Join the conversation. Always save a seat at the table for you at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
Enough.
Enough. Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Whoa, 27 minutes after the hour. Chris Moody here from Yahoo News. As a friend of Bill this hour, we're going to be joined by Luke Johnson from Huffington Post. coming up at the half. Peter?
Quick comment from Twitter, because we're on Twitter at BP Show. Okay, Chris, I'm sure this isn't personal, but Rob Teed says, this guy is delusional. The GOP will not modernize, hence the definition of conservative, to keep things as they are.
That's nice. But no, I mean...
I don't think you're delusional.
I don't think I'm delusional either, but they are seeing certain issues where you have large minorities within the party that are adjusting and pulling them in that direction. They're not moving in lockstep, and we're seeing that fight played out in what some people call GOP civil war. There's a reason that we write those headlines, because it's happening.
Right. I think they're delusional to think that they can actually improve their standing in those communities unless they change their policies. But I've got to ask you, what happened to that other jug that you had here?
Oh, well, I thought it was offensive to
I want to know,
okay.
what is this?
So I
was curious.
I'm going to get made fun of it for this, I suppose, but I have made my own beet, kale, pepper, and apple juice fresh this morning.
That's breakfast.
Breakfast. It's delicious.
Okay.
What?
Did you put
beets,
kale? You put them in a
pepper,
a blender?
In a juicer. Got myself
apple.
Yeah.
And with vodka?
Peppers?
You could put some vodka in there.
Green peppers.
But kale?
It's a nice little touch.
It's like a Bloody Mary.
You know, V8. There is a thing called V8 juice you could buy.
Oh, it's all processed. This is fresh, right out of the ground into my breakfast drink.
What are we missing here?
I'll bring you some next show.
I'll take my Giovanni yogurt.
I'm going to get some bacon. I'll be right back.
Yeah, right.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour now here on the Bill Press Show. We are again coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station all across this great land of ours. And on Free Speech TV. If you got a satellite dish, you know how to get there to DirecTV or the Dish Network. And if you prefer to watch and not just listen to the conversation, you can go on our video stream as well to youtube.com/TawkrTV. And don't forget, we look forward to your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on by phone at 866-55-PRESS. So, Chris Moody here from Yahoo News. Here is our friend of Bill this hour. Chris,
good morning.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
With now joined by Luke Johnson, who is Associate Political Editor, Politics Editor for Huffington Post. You got a lot of people covering politics at Huffington Post.
Yeah, we've
right?
got one of the largest news bureaus in Washington. We've got about 40 people, so we cover the whole city.
And as associate editor, like, are you the boss? You're in charge of them all, right? Or
no, I'm not the boss. I'm kind of playing traffic cop sometimes and writing interesting stories that I don't think are covered enough or whatnot.
Yeah. And is Sam Stein like out of control? Is
Sam gone wild?
Yeah.
I got to be careful what I say here.
I know. I'm gonna put you on the spot. He's a friend. He's a neighbor.
He's a neighbor. He's now a neighbor. He's the boss. He's quite in control, I would say.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh.
yeah.
I can
in
see
control of everything.
The inner politics of Huffington Post. You'll find out more about this. All right, you've been spending a lot of time, and you have too, Chris, with the situation of Iran. I mean, this is unusual because the President of the United States has been saying, diplomacy, diplomacy, give peace a chance. And Democrats in Congress, I didn't think this would never happen if you had a Republican in the White House and Republicans in the Congress, right? They would never be taking on their president the way these Democrats in Congress seem to say, no, we don't want this peace deal. We want more sanctions on Iran. What's going on, Luke? You start.
Well, I think so. There's a bipartisan bill by Senators Mark Kirk and Bob Menendez to add more sanctions to Iran if an interim deal fails. And this has gained the support of almost the entire Republican caucus in the Senate and about 15 Democrats in the Senate, about half of whom are up for close re-elections. What do you see going on is it's an election year, and in addition, the opponents of this deal, Israel and Saudi Arabia, have been lobbying Democrats to support the bill. So what you have is some Democrats who are trying to say, we want to help Obama with this deal, despite the fact that Obama has said the exact opposite. This does not help.
Well, Chris, doesn't it sort of, if you're making a deal with whatever country it is over here, and you say, no, I'm the president, I'm the director in charge of foreign policy, and I can make this deal, and you've got your legislature or your Congress pulling the rug out from under you, it's going to screw things up, right? Or at least has the potential to.
It's probably not necessarily helpful. And you do have a lot of people in Congress that believe that whatever the president says on foreign policy, they want to back him. I mean, we saw this in Syria with John Boehner really getting behind the president, saying, I trust him. He's the commander in chief. let's wait and see. And he was not one of these bombastic guys. But with Iran here, we're seeing a lot less assuredness or backing behind the president. And like you said, it's bipartisan. Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey, is
He's
a co-author
leading the charge
of this sanctions bill. Now, whether Harry Reid, gives it a vote and we see if it passed, that's another thing. But it surely can't be easy for the president to have all of these guys doing that.
A fact here I want to be sure of. So something you said, Luke, the bill would say there would be more sanctions placed on Iran if the interim deal falls through, right?
Right. It would say if an interim deal falls through or Iran walks away. Now, Iran has, the foreign minister has said that if Congress passes more sanctions, then we'll walk away. And you can see from how...
But they won't be applied right away. That's my point, right?
They won't be applied right away, but the very act of this hanging thing could really derail negotiations.
And that's why President Obama has said he would...
Right. He wants to give Iran some breathing room. I mean, there's been so much suspicion between the two countries over the past 30 years.
You also said something interesting. Have we ever seen a case, Chris, like this where the United States, here where the president is trying to adopt a certain policy, and you've got two countries, Israel and Saudi Arabia, who are openly lobbying in the Congress against the president of the United States?
Well, I think we see that in the behind the scenes in a lot of policies. What a lot of people don't know is countries all over the world have American lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. doing their bidding, some of which think about running for president someday on their own. We've seen people lobby for all kinds of countries, friends, and maybe not foe, but not super friends, right? And so,
K Street makes a lot of money off these.
Yes. And these places have a lot of influence here in Washington that I don't think a lot of people are aware of how that really works.
Well, and the president is kind of, exactly, making us aware of it. Now, so this is in the Senate.
Yes.
Now, yesterday, Eric Cantor gets involved in the equation. And how does that play out?
So there was a plan floated by Eric Cantor, I think, to pass the Senate bill in the House verbatim. The House has already passed a much harsher sanctions bill that wouldn't pass the Senate, probably. So they would just pass the Senate bill, and that would assumedly ratchet up the pressure on Harry Reid and Obama to pass the legislation. Now, that may have the effect of backfiring if certain Democrats see it as a partisan move by the GOP House to try to force his hand.
Well, I could see that. I mean, it could be the kiss of death, right, for Bob Menendez. Maybe the last thing he wants is for Eric Cantor to come out publicly and say, I love the Menendez bill.
Right, and I think it's beyond Bob Menendez. There are a lot of kind of moderate to liberal senators backing this, like Michael Bennet and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. So if they see Eric Cantor as supporting this, it may give them cold feet because they're already getting a lot of heat from the White House.
Chris, you cover Congress as well. Isn't it really in the hands of Harry Reid? I mean, he can block this, correct?
He has the choice whether or not to put it on the floor. And, of course, lawmakers have their own way of forcing things in, but really in this scenario, the buck pretty much stops with him. The interesting thing about foreign policy is it doesn't necessarily put lawmakers on always traditional party lines. There are certain issues where the Democrats are going to be and the Republicans are going to be. But foreign policy often kind of mixes that together, and we see some crossover where we don't see in a lot of domestic issues. So it's a little more complicated, I think, than just, liberals think this, conservatives think this, and that's the end of it.
Is there any talk about military action in Iran if this deal falls through? I mean, there has been in the past, right? I mean, and Netanyahu famously wanted us to do a military strike against Iran. Is that being talked about anymore?
I think the United States says it's on the table. I don't think after Iraq and Afghanistan anyone's seriously considering military action against Iran, even though the best case scenario for military action would be to delay Iran's nuclear program for a few months, and then they wouldn't want to negotiate with us at all. So I don't think that's really a serious threat at this point.
I don't think there's any public appetite for it.
Absolutely not. Look at what happened with just thinking about it with Syria or the possibility of aiding certain military projects. Getting involved with Iran in this way is a whole different matter, and absolutely not. I think you'll have a sustained reaction to that. And I don't think Obama really wants to put forth that effort after working so hard to de-escalate our efforts in Afghanistan and Iraq. The last thing he wants to do is have him go out of his presidency having started another conflict.
And at the briefings, at the White House briefings, which I go to every day, I mean, Jay Carney goes out of his way to say all options are on the table. But then he also quickly adds, but we're not really thinking about a military action. Before we take a break, a related point on this is that John Kerry, more than anybody else, hammered this deal together.
Right.
We have seen Hillary Clinton gets credit for being this outstanding Secretary of State, and she was.
Mm-hmm.
But Kerry has upped it to a level of activity in the Middle East, in Syria, in Iran, on global warming, that I think, he's really, I think, proven to be a very aggressive, effective Secretary of State. Is he getting any credit for it?
I don't think he's getting much credit for this Iran deal. I mean, look at how the Congress is treating him. But this is a really historic deal. I mean, Iran has been, and the United States have not talked for 30 years, and it's been the number one goal of U.S. policy to try to de-escalate Iran's nuclear program. And here he's doing it peacefully, which everyone wanted. And now there's a chance for that to work out.
I mean, he could eclipse Hillary in terms of achievements as Secretary of State.
Well, he's had a lot thrown on his plate just since he began.
But he's also been willing to put stuff on his plate, I guess is my point.
We've talked more about foreign policy since Obama was reelected than a lot of other issues. 2013 was full of that, and we didn't see much of that. Everyone was focused on the economy in his first term and everything, and now it's gone to foreign policy. So, I mean, this is really a moment for John Kerry. If he can live up to the moment, he seems to be doing that to really make a mark as Secretary of State.
No, he is tackling some really big issues. We're covering the news of the day on all fronts, domestic and foreign, here with Chris Moody from Yahoo News and Luke Johnson from Huffington Post. We'll be right back here, and you can join the conversation anytime. There's room at the table for you. We'll find room at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dog, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Congressman John Tierney here in the next hour in studio with us, as well as Hadas Gold from Politico, who covers media, the media for Politico, and lots of media stories these days as well. In studio with us, Luke Johnson's here from Huffington Post, associate politics editor, and Chris Moody as a friend of Bill from Yahoo News, yahoonews.com. The president yesterday said something interesting when he was meeting with reporters about the message. We've been talking about Congress, okay, and maybe the ability or inability of Congress to get anything done. The president kind of, I thought it was a shot across their bow by reminding them, he said, I have a pen and I have a phone, which was, do we have that sound there?
I've got a pen
yeah,
and I've got a phone. And I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward.
So he's kind of saying either you get something done or I'll get it done for you, wasn't he, Luke? Pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I think the president, when he does executive orders like this, Congress really hates it because he's taking away their prerogative and their power to spend money. So this was kind of a threat to Congress, being like, if you don't pass on my priorities, like unemployment insurance, then he can't unilaterally pass that, but he might do some other executive actions that Congress might not like.
Yeah. I mean, he does have a lot of power, but it's also limited. That's what our system of government is.
And when he said this, of course, we saw the big drudge siren that, you know, the tyrant has come out of President Obama. He's shown himself. I mean, he might have been inarticulate in his words, one who might want to read in more than that, but it is limited. He can't do anything he wants. He knows what he can do. His attorneys know what he can do, and they're looking at those options. But it's not all encompassing. He's not going to eliminate Congress with the strike of his pen.
For example, you mentioned extension of the unemployment benefits, which the president certainly wants to do and would do by executive action if he could.
And he might find ways to do something near that or put pressure. And when he says he has a phone, he can use the kind of that bully pulpit a little bit and pressure people. He still is the president of the United States. I mean, he's got.
So there were two votes yesterday that Majority Leader Reid called on the extension of unemployment benefits. They both failed. Is this dead, Luke?
I'm afraid that it might be. I feel like that many members of Congress think that the economy has improved enough that unemployment benefits are no longer necessary. You said Rand Paul comes out and says it makes harder for people to find a job. So there's just not a huge sense of urgency I get on the part of Senate Republicans, or let alone the House, to pass this.
You agree, Chris?
Well, what you will probably
It's hard to believe that they could just walk, for me, hard to believe they could walk away from 1.3 million Americans who lost their last lifeline, basically, and just say, we don't care. Hey, the economy's getting better. Ha ha!
Well, most
not
of
for
them
it's not.
As we talked about earlier, most of them are millionaires, so the economy's good for them. And Congress is millionaires. But, I mean, what you'll probably see is an uptick in the labor market for minimum wage jobs. And that's another issue that the Senate Democrats plan to take up in the next couple of weeks. Look, they see an opportunity, Democrats, for minimum wage. They know Republicans are going to push back on it. And and they're going to probably reject it. And it gives them an opportunity for 2012 to talk about something that they believe will help American workers, and it also allows them not to talk about the rollout of the healthcare law as well. Right. That's probably to come in the next few weeks in the Senate.
It's a good thing I'm not a betting man, Luke, because if I were, I would have bet any amount of money that 2013 we would have had a comprehensive immigration bill through the Congress signed by the president, because Republicans needed it and Democrats wanted it. Didn't happen.
Right. I mean,
any chance this year?
I think there is a chance that some piecemeal bills to deal with immigration reform could pass the House. I don't think that the Senate immigration bill will ever pass the House. There are too many House Republicans that don't want to do it, that don't have very many immigrants in their district, that don't see the political upshot of doing it.
This comes back to what you and I talked about in the first half, the Republican National Committee, with their big meeting next week.
I mean, they
haven't budged on this issue.
Well, they have budged, though. That it depends on which Republicans you're talking to.
Okay.
You do. I remember, and I would have been a betting loser with you last year, because I remember Richard Trumka standing literally shoulder to shoulder with Grover Norquist saying, we're going to pass this year. I mean, you saw people all over the political spectrum coming together. Marco Rubio working with Chuck Schumer on this bill. But
he ran away from it pretty fast.
It's the opposition to the comprehensive bill. Now, we're seeing a softening possibly on some House Republicans to do the piecemeal approach. That's probably the best you're going to get in 2014. You're not going to see the Senate bill, the comprehensive Senate bill, being lumped right into the House. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which even some Republicans supported.
Some, absolutely.
But, not enough.
Not enough.
Hey, guys, out of time. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, Luke, thanks for your good work.
Thank you for having me.
First time, I think, in studio,
yes,
right?
First time in studio.
All right. Well, Chris will tell you it gets better and better the more we come. And bring your own juice next time.
Hey, Bill tried some, just in case the readers want to know.
Kale, beet, orange.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek, now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realised that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the product suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
Hey, you like the first 2 hours? You're going to like the third hour even more. Lots coming up in hour number 3 with Congressman John Tierney from Massachusetts in studio with us, and we'll talk the latest media buzz with Hadas Gold, a media critic, media reporter for Politico. And you can you're going to lose you on Free Speech TV. So come on over to the video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV, and stay with us for hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. President Obama down to Raleigh, North Carolina today. And that area, he will, first of all, tour Vacon, a company that manufactures AC drives, which are used to control the speed of electric motors to maximize energy efficiency. Then he goes on to North Carolina State University, where he's going to announce new steps to strengthen the manufacturing sector. You can bet he's going to call on the extension of unemployment insurance.
Yeah, and you know what? There are a lot of good barbecue places in that area.
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying.
Barbecue's not on the schedule here, but you can
I bet it'll find its way on there.
I'll bet he will.
There's some good places in that area.
He leaves North Carolina 2 o'clock after the barbecue session today. And back at the White House at 5 o'clock this afternoon, he'll be meeting with the entire Senate Democratic Caucus in the East Room of the White House, talking about the Senate agenda for 2014. Congressman John Tierney joins us in the next hour, and Hadas Gold from Politico.
This is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, if you're one of the long-term unemployed and you were hoping for some relief from Congress, forget about it. Senate twice yesterday rejecting any effort to extend unemployment benefits. They just don't care. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Wednesday morning, January 15. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us as we hopscotch around the nation's capital, around the country, around the globe, and bring you the big stories of the day on many, many fronts and get your comments. We'll tell you what's going on. That's our job. You tell us what you think about it. That's your job. Don't forget, you know how to do it at 866-55-PRESS. Our toll-free number, again, is 866-55-PRESS. You can send us your comments, and we invite you to on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. A team here assembled this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, as always. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
Alicia Cruz, there she is. She's your phone contact. And Cyprian Bolding, keeping us on the video cam on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. The media, always getting in trouble, always part of the news, and Hadas Gold is a media reporter for Politico, working with our good friend Dylan Byers. Good morning, Hadas.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Thank you for coming in. Yesterday, Christie gave as scheduled, his State of the State address, but he could not resist having something to say about the scandals, saying again, as he had at his news conference last Thursday, the buck stops here.
Now, I'm the governor, and I'm ultimately responsible for all that happens on my watch, both good and bad.
Yep. So, even though he fired one aide and cut his ties with another one, he still says it's my responsibility. But he is not only, I want you to know, not only the governor of New Jersey, he's something else, too.
I am the leader of this state and its people. And I stand here today proud to be both.
So I'm going to say it's all about Chris Christie. I am the leader. I'm the leader. Yes. We knew Chris Christie had a big ego. Remember when he gave the keynote address to the Republican National Convention in 2012? And it was like 20 minutes into his speech, and he still had not mentioned Mitt Romney. And he was talking about his mother and about New Jersey and the kind of governor that I am and what works in New Jersey. And everybody was saying, wait a minute, are you the nominee? Are you running for president?
He got ahead of himself.
Right? A little bit, yes. I am the leader. If you have any doubts about it, just shut up, says Chris Christie. So Hadas Gold here with us for the first half hour, and then Congressman John Tierney from Massachusetts in to tell us what's going on just down the street from us, down the hill. We'll get to all of that, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Big stories here.
Yes, indeed. I'll start with the biggest story of the day.
Right.
You'll be surprised to hear that Justin Bieber is in some trouble. Yesterday, L.A. County Sheriff's deputies went to his mansion, served a search warrant in connection with an allegation that he egged a neighbor's house.
Oh, get out.
This is what you do when you're one of the biggest musical acts in the world, is you egg your neighbor's house.
Over the wall?
Yeah, basically. There was one man on the premises who was actually arrested because when the police came in, there was coke everywhere. Coke was in clear view of the police officer, so they arrested one guy who was there. They said that the vandalism caused by the egg throwing is a felony, and I find this hard to believe. The homeowner whose house was egged said that the damage is around $20,000.
Get out.
And
If
it's a
you
felony.
did
That's a lot of eggs.
$20,000. You're throwing ostrich eggs or something. Like, you're doing some major
diamond eggs.
Yeah, right. I mean, 20 gur and damage by egg throwing? I don't think so.
How old is Justin Bieber?
Who cares?
Well, what I mean is...
He's over the age of 18.
He is over the age of 18, yeah.
Well,
so he's
okay.
not going to, like...
All right, we've all thrown
juvie.
eggs, but we sort of stopped throwing eggs at a certain age. That's
Yeah.
what I'm pointing out.
Yeah.
So he's over that age where he should no longer be throwing eggs.
You would
correct?
think.
Well over.
You would think. Big Food went on a big diet. A new study released this week shows that major food companies sold 6.4 trillion fewer calories in 2012 than they did in 2007. It's, this whole initiative of feeding people healthier food. The 16 companies that produce 36% of all packaged food and beverages sold in the United States cut their calories by tweaking products or creating new lower-calorie substitutes.
So you don't have to go to the gym after all.
Yeah, just go eat more packaged processed foods. Yeah, it's healthier for you now.
It goes back to those ads we talked about last week. Get a gym body without going to the gym.
That's right. Just take these pills.
Just buy the right processed foods.
Jim Beam and Maker's Mark are now going to be owned by Japanese whiskey operation. Suntory.
This is un-American.
Suntory Whiskey bought Beam Incorporated for $13.6 billion. Real talk, Japan actually makes some fine whiskey.
They do.
They do make very good whiskey. However, bourbon is a very American thing. So I don't know if they can replicate exactly,
Hopefully this will cause people to go buy those small batch,
right.
independent distilleries now.
There are some very good ones.
Yeah, there are. Now, when I saw that story, and I just thought, here's one more American institution, right?
Yeah.
And if you think, you don't even want to get into, I did a story on this when I was still out in L.A. one time, like all the famous downtown buildings in L.A. who are owned by the Chinese or the Japanese or the Swiss or somebody, right? And you don't even want to go there. If you went to New York and the skyscrapers or whatever, and companies, right, that we think of as American institutions that are not owned by Americans anymore.
Yeah, I think Hadas is right though. Find like the smaller craft bourbons that are done in Kentucky or other. I mean, if you're not drinking bourbon from the South, you're probably going to go to hell. So, like, find some of the smaller batch things. They're better anyway.
All right. And
so I've heard.
And they're American.
And they're American.
All right.
Damn
13
right.
minutes after the hour. Let's go. The big news in the media that I've seen lately, I want to find out more what you're reporting on this new book out, unauthorized biography of Roger Ailes.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
So Gabe Sherman, he's a writer for New York Magazine. He's been working on this book on Roger Ailes for years now. I'd say at least 2 years. And it actually was released yesterday. The release date was moved up because of all the excitement over it. And what we're seeing is actually almost as much publicity being done by Fox News to push back against this book as to what Gabe Sherman's own publishing house is doing to publicize it. So it's kind of working for him because there's so much attention over it. They've released excerpts from it in New York Magazine. The New York Times book review gave it a very, very good review. They said it's actually a very fair and balanced, stealing the...
Oh, did they? Yeah.
Stealing the slogan a little bit, saying it's a very fair and balanced look at Roger Ailes. And Roger Ailes is not happy about this at all. He has been campaigning against this book since he first heard about Gabe Sherman reporting on it. They have their own war room set up against it. They've been having their hosts tweet out against Gabe Sherman for years now. And he actually, no one can fully confirm this, but he says that, but people say that he had worked with another author on a more flattering biography that was released recently, and he did not participate in this one. So this book is giving us, a glimpse into the life of Roger Ailes and to what it's like to work in Fox News, but it doesn't really have any super shocking revelations. Pretty much, if you thought one way about Fox News and Roger Ailes beforehand, this book just cemented how you think about him.
Well, I was going to say, I know Roger Ailes is upset about this book, but what are the damage, President Obama may not be happy with Bob Gates' book. We sort of know what Gates said about President Obama. What does Gabe Sherman say about Roger Ailes that Roger Ailes would not want people to know?
I mean, it's pretty much everything in the book, from being predatory towards women in the office and offering to pay one of his former employees for sex every week if she wanted a higher pay raise, to being paranoid that everybody is, wanting to kick him out or follow him around, something like that, when he and his wife went into that small town and bought the newspaper there up in New York, and how they kind of took it over, and just kind of like how he operates. And, think about it. It's like all of your deepest, darkest secrets coming out, and almost none of it is flattering. And he doesn't want it. I mean, he's known for pushing people out, firing them, or for waging a campaign against them if they say anything bad about Fox News.
So you can't deny, whatever you think of his politics, that he's been inordinately successful in his...
Right.
I mean, nobody can touch Fox News. I mean...
Right, and Sherman writes about that, writes about just how powerful he is, and how even within the company, he's able to exert power over Rupert Murdoch's own children, and how there's a story in there about when one of the children, I think it was Lachlan, when he pretty much kind of left the company, went back to Australia, Roger took over his office and would sit in his chair and tell people, like, look whose chair I'm sitting in. It's like one of the crown prince's chairs, and here I am. So it seems like he takes great pleasure in doing things like that.
So what I'm getting at is, here's a guy who is on top of the world when it comes to American television. What does he care what this book says? You know what I mean? I mean, he's also he's become very, very wealthy.
Right.
He's at an age where his career, this is sort of the pinnacle of his career, right, and the end of his career. So why doesn't he just ignore this book? He could afford to ignore this book and not suffer at all, right? It's not going to hurt his income. It's not going to hurt his position of power. He's not going to lose his job.
Look, I see it as two ways. The first way, which Gabe details in his book, is that this is part of Roger Ailes' personality. He's never able to not become combative. That's just who he is. Gabe talks about this when he moved to that small town in New York. You would think that, like, he would calm down and just like live and let live and be happy in this like quiet and wonderful little place. But instead, he goes around, he buys up the newspaper, he starts backing like candidates for local elections and just like causing a ruckus. And that's just him. There's a quote in there that he told someone that he's always has this anger inside of him, and he just doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's just who he is. The second, though, is that, do you notice how many times we're saying Fox News in the last few days ever since this book has been talked about?
Right.
Which only means that we're going to be watching Fox to see if they talk about it. We're going to be watching Fox to see what the reaction is. We're going to be searching online for Fox News. That's all the better for their ratings. So why not talk about it?
So there's a method to his madness.
Yeah. What's the old saying, like, no publicity is bad publicity or something like that. So nothing wrong with it.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
No such thing as bad publicity. There you go.
While we're on that related story, what are you keep on top of this, how are the cables doing these days? I mean, Fox is, 2-1 over their nearest rival, and are MSNBC and CNN showing any
Fox
growth, or are
is,
they going down, or what's going on?
Fox is still by far the most popular one, and CNN and MSNBC are kind of fighting each other now for second place. It tends, the way I've seen it, CNN tends to do sometimes better than MSNBC, but Jeff Zucker recently has said that they're going to try and get CNN away from kind of the normal newscast and do a little bit more of the shows, kind of like Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. And then MSNBC, it seems like they're trying really hard to find their place. They've been having a lot of those host issues recently. They're doing a bit of a lineup shakeup. Alex Wagner moved to 4 p.m. Ronan Farrow is coming in. So CNN is, from what we've seen from Jeff Zucker, it seems like they're trying to place themselves once again as kind of the higher ground middle between the right of Fox News and the left of MSNBC. So things are still kind of status quo as of yet. We'll see what happens when CNN changes up things.
I've made a career and a good living in cable television, okay? So I come from that world at the same, but inside the Beltway too, we tend to think of cable news as being all important and that everybody's really wrapped up in it. The number of people watching cable news is actually amazingly small, isn't it?
Right. If you compare the number of people who watch a night of cable news, even combined between Fox, MSNBC, and CNN, compared to one of the popular TV shows, we're talking percentage of that total number. Like millions of people tune into American Idol or something like that, versus maybe 3 million total for a night
watching cable news.
Yeah, for a night of cable news. But like we said, the Beltway is a pretty important area. So those people who are watching those cable news shows tend to be the type of people who are deciding what's going to be on the news the next morning, who are the ones working at the newspapers, who are the ones on Capitol Hill. And so it does matter. Even though it's a smaller percentage, I think it still makes a difference what's on those cable news shows.
Yeah, it does. But it's just every time I see those numbers, I always think, and this is what people get so concerned about, right? If there's something on CNN or on MSNBC.
Exactly.
And network news is holding its own or still dropping?
It's dropping, but actually something really interesting that this past week when it was really, really cold, remember the cold snap?
Yeah.
The number of normal network news viewers shot up. People were cold, so they were sitting at home, and so they turned on the evening news with Diane Sawyer or Brian Williams or whoever else. And I've noticed this even with myself, is that I love, the nightly newscast. I'm one of those who, when I was growing up, that's what we always did. I still find trouble trying to get home or trying to find myself in the position to watch it. So they're holding, they're not completely dead yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 years we no longer see a normal nightly newscast the way we're used to it today.
Yeah. I watch the evening news if I can. Scott Pelley I've been watching lately. And I must say, it still amazes me that we only have in this country a half hour of national news. I mean, it's sort of
on the big networks.
On the big networks. It's sort of like that's all we can take. I mean, come on. Anyhow, 22 minutes after the hour here with Hadas Gold from Politico, covering media stories. Your comments, you watch all this stuff, you read all this stuff. You've got the stronger opinions than we do, perhaps, about what you watch and see, especially on Fox and Roger Ailes. 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Congressman John Tierney joining us in the next half hour here of this Wednesday edition of the Bill Press Show. Right now we're visiting with Hadas from Politico, Politico.com on Media Matters. A couple of things quickly, just have a little over a minute to go. Tamron Hall announced this morning, it was announced this morning, she may be leaving MSNBC, going to the Today Show.
Yeah, it's been reported that she might be trying to take over a spot at the Today Show, which would be a really interesting move for her. She's kind of been a mainstay at MSNBC for a while. But
she's great, too. I think she's really good.
She wants to get really big, then the Today Show is the place to be.
Absolutely, as has been proven for other people.
Exactly.
And we mentioned Christie. I've talked about him a lot this week. The New York media... he can't expect them necessarily to be in his corner, can he?
Right. We had a story yesterday about how being so close to the New York media, epicenter, has really helped raise up and helped with his political ambitions. But at the same time, it's now backfired because the moment there's any type of scandal with him, especially like with this bridge thing, you've got the New York Times covering you, you've got the Wall Street Journal, you've got all of the major networks. So, it's benefited him and it's now hurting him at the same time.
Isn't that classic, though, right? The media, right? Love to build you up and then tear you down.
We need a good narrative.
We got it. But you're right. He would not be as well known as he is without that media. And now they see an opportunity, and it's like sharks in the water.
Exactly.
All right, Hadas, we'll follow you on Politico, Politico.com. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Say hello to Dylan.
This
All right,
is the Bill Press Show. Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 33 minutes after the hour here. It is the Bill Press Show this Wednesday morning. January 15, we're coming to you live from our nation's capital, brought to you this morning by AFSCME. You know, the good men and women of AFSCME under President Lee Saunders, the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country, doing great work, and you can find out about their good work at afscme.org. That's AFSCME.org. AFSCME, one of the organizations in front of Congress these days, saying we've got to do something about those long-term unemployed Americans who lost their benefits January 1, and we've got to do something about raising the minimum wage. Can we see and hope for any action in either of those areas? Congressman John Tierney from Massachusetts is right in the middle of all of them, representing Massachusetts' 6th District. Congressman, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Bill.
Friends for a long time. It's nice to have you in studio. I got to tell you, George Miller, one of my best friends.
And mine.
Announcing yesterday he is retiring from Congress, and we just learned 5 minutes ago that Congressman Jim Moran, another good friend from Northern Virginia here, right across the river, resigning this year from Congress. What's going on? These are two guys, and on top of Carolyn McCarthy from Long Island.
Well, you know, Carolyn's was a health issue, and I think we all have to respect that. George Miller has been here 40 years. You know, he's entitled to retire once. He's got an unbelievable record, and I think when Vicky was talking to, I think the comment that he was the Ted Kennedy of the House probably his most fitting tribute to him. I mean, he's just been spectacular. And Jim is news to me that you just shared with me. I don't know, but he's been in Congress and in politics for a long time. But it's sad. You know, these are people that you enjoy coming to work with, and you know they have the public's interest in mind all the time, and they're fighters and always, in my estimation anyway, on the right side.
Absolutely. And effective and got things done.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, George Miller, you can list all the things that he's done, and top to bottom, go ceiling to floor.
Right. Our mutual friend, Congressman Sam Farr from Monterey, who's a good friend of George's and mine, and I emailed him right away and said, what's going on? He said he just couldn't believe it because George, he said, has probably the best legislative record of anybody.
I think he's the best legislator. You know, I don't know how I ended up hooked up with all these West Coast guys on that or whatever, but when I first got elected, Michael Harrington, who had held my seat from 69 to 78, was a friend of mine. I'd said to him, you know, my first task when I got down was to make George Miller a friend. You know, well, you see him on C-SPAN, and you would read what was going on and say, this guy knows how it's done. His heart's in the right place. Takes on causes that are unbelievably difficult and to no benefit to him, whether it's the miners or the Mariana Islands, you know, the work situations there. And he would take these causes on and do a great job with them. But a lot of other people would have said, well, that's not going to get me a vote, or it's not going to do anything in my home district, and leave it. But he was about doing the right thing, and he got thoroughly engaged, and he found a way, as you say, to legislate and to make it happen.
Tell us about before we get into the news of the day here in Washington, politics in Massachusetts. You're in pretty good shape, right? You got a new mayor in
Boston who has got great support so far. He seems to be getting off on the right foot, and that's a good thing. We have our statewide elections. The Mayor Patrick, who's been with us for 8 years now, he's in his 8th year, done a great job, with our economy and other things, and there'll be a big contest to see who replaces him. The fellow that he beat last time, 3.5 years ago, will be running on the Republican side. About 5 different Democrats.
He's termed out, Deval Patrick?
He's decided he's not going to run again. It'll be 2 terms, and he's decided he's going to go back into business on that. So, it's just interesting. A lot of things happening. And
Elizabeth Warren?
Elizabeth Warren, she's done a great job. On policy, I always relied on her as one of the experts you could go to when it was a credit issue of banking and bankruptcy and things. So I knew she had the policy down. She's great at the politics, too. She's got the whole package, and she's doing a great job. And Eddie Markey, of course, is the new senator out there. He's been here. He knows how the system works.
And you guys together in the House for years and years.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, what a great delegation.
Thank you. We take great pride in making sure we cover each other's back and get things done for the state.
How's the Massachusetts health care plan?
Working quite well.
Romney Care,
2006 Romney Care, and the only thing that some of the business community are looking for a couple of waivers on some of the provisions because their argument, which I think holds some water, is we've been doing it for all these years. Let us keep doing it the way we're doing it. Everybody bought in: the industries, hospitals, and insurance companies, businesses, the public. Government is all bought in. It's working well. So other than those little points there, most people are saying this is a good system. It's working. We've got almost 98+% of our people with coverage.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And young people. Young people in Massachusetts. They find it. I was reading the other day, a little slow, like they are at the national level now. Right?
Terribly slow in the beginning, and it just picked up as people understood that this was good for them. But that's the key in the federal part too, right? We got to get the right mix of ages. And if young people finally realize that in the long run it's good for them, they're one accident or one serious illness away from not being invincible. And that's the tough part of getting them to sign up. They're young, they're healthy. Why do I need this? Until they do.
We ended the last year in the Congress with several stories that this was the least effective and the least productive year of Congress ever in the history of recorded Congress. And then at the very end, you had this mini deal put together between Paul Ryan and Patty Murray, and everybody said this shows that maybe in 2014 we can get some things done. Do you share that optimism? And if so, where is it?
We're forever the optimist on this. I think a lot of it hinges on whether John Boehner continues to have the spine to take on the more extreme parts of his party,
which he did for that deal.
He did for that deal, and it looks like he might be doing it this week for the spending bills, which are not the best thing in the world, but they do reflect the levels in the budget that were that deal that you spoke about. And they do some things to certainly improve the situation over the sequestration and all the really deep cuts on that. The problem that we have is that you have all this outside money, and they no longer, I think it was Jacob Hacker that said in his book, it's no longer a case of campaign contributions. Now there's so much money out there that's just going straight to the public and buying attitude. So you see them take an issue on, spend millions and millions of dollars, and it's political. I mean, they may not have to go in and say, Bill Press, we're campaigning against him, but pick an issue that's associated with Bill Press and go in and just kill it, whether it's true or not. And they certainly are not bound by the truth at all in the things that they say and advertise, and it has a tremendous impact. I think our system is in real difficulty here, where people can go in with that kind of money and upset races and not really give people a choice with the real information they need. And I think it was Brandeis that said, you can either have a government where where one group only has all the money, or you can have a democracy, but you probably can't have both.
On that very point, today's front page of the New York Times headline at front page: ads attacking on health law stagger outspent Democrats. It's a group, Americans for Prosperity. Guess what? Yeah. Funded by the Koch brothers, right? Have spent so far $20 million on these TV ads who are going into districts around the country and in anticipation of these midterms, 2014, putting attack ads up against Democrats and Republicans. These are not ads supporting their opponent. They're just attack ads on them for voting for the Affordable Care Act 3 years ago.
Right, and those ads are not at all bordered by the truth. I mean, there's innuendos and insinuations and flat-out misstatements in those ads and speculation that it probably, it doesn't stand the most remote possibility of becoming true, but they're not bound by that, and they don't particularly care.
Yeah, so just that one vote, and it doesn't talk about the success of the Affordable Care Act or the good parts about it or good, whatever. So is that a problem for Democrats in 2014?
Oh, I think it's definitely a problem for Democrats. We can try to say that it is and gloss over it, but we have to come out with a concerted effort of explaining to people what's in the bill, bringing forth people that are being helped by the bill, and making the case. We don't have the money that the Koch brothers have flowing on that side. We don't have the machine of Fox so-called news. All of those aspects that sort of work in concert and go out. So we just have to do it. I mean, just the other day, we've taken about 200 of us as members went out and tried to do a press deal, conferences with our press, with people on the unemployment insurance issue, extending that, and just try to get the volume up, amplify the message out here so that there's some pushback, and you do it at the grassroots level because we simply don't have the access on that. But we did that with Social Security. When President Bush tried to privatize it, we had over 1,000 town hall meetings, and we did those press conferences. We raised the temperature on the issue, and he had to back off. I think we're going to have to do that on any of the issues that we really care about.
Yeah, because I have to say, I don't think the administration... Look, there were certainly problems with the website. We can't...
You think?
Right. You got to accept that. But now the website is fixed. The stories that we do here, we hear more and more stories about people who are getting coverage who could never get it before. Just the same thing with the numbers that came out the other day, 2.2 million. Right. And more people now on the federal exchange than have come through the state exchanges. Plus, you have the people signing up on Medicaid.
Yeah, you have some signing up on Medicaid. You got about 13 governors that won't let them.
Who won't let them.
Which is another
right.
5 or 6 million people that would have health care and would be paid for. The states wouldn't be paying for the bulk of that at all. They'd be paying for a very small portion. All of these things are important. None of the social programs that are put in as a safety net for Americans came easily. They are large programs by necessity. So Social Security came on, and that was a little difficulty in the administration of it. Medicare came on. There was tremendous difficulty in the original aspect of that. Nobody wants to give up those two programs now. When the Part D came into Medicare, George Bush was the president, so all the mess there was met by the Republicans with, it's a glitch, we can fix it. Well, these are things that can be fixed, too. And what I would think the public should hopefully be getting on board is, we're going in the right direction. People are getting health care. When there's a glitch, fix it. Work together and fix it.
Right. And get off this idea that Republicans are ever going to be able to repeal it.
Right.
That's notice they don't talk about replacement anymore, do they?
No, they don't. They don't talk about much at all. They
don't have any.
They create specters of these horror shows, and they go after that.
Congressman John Tierney here from Massachusetts. When we come back, I want to get to unemployment insurance and a minimum wage. Your calls welcome here. Got a call for the good congressman from Massachusetts on any issue. He covers them all. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. It's 12 minutes now before the top of the hour here on a Wednesday morning, January 15. Honored to have in studio with us senior member of the Congress from the state of Massachusetts, Congressman John Tierney, representing Massachusetts 6th District. Congressman, let's say hello to Steve out in Madison, Wisconsin. He's got a story, but we want to talk about unemployment insurance. Steve's got a question about that on our good affiliate out there, 92.1 The Mic. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Good morning.
Yes.
Hey, I just wanted to put out a factual statement out there.
Okay.
To contradict some of the comments that people make that you contradict well, and that is that over the last 3 years, with the sluggish economy, my unemployment insurance rates have tripled because of all the people I've had to lay off in our manufacturing business because we don't have the orders coming in the door.
And in other words, the demand is not there for products, therefore paying more in unemployment insurance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Demand's not there for products, sales down, laying off people, no choice of their own. They're perfectly good people. And as a result, I pay unemployment insurance, and over time, the state triples my rate.
Right. Thanks, Steve, for the call.
Well, Steve, I mean, I'm right away, just from listening to you, I know that you'd rather be hiring those people back and working with them as colleagues.
Yeah.
And don't like that situation. I spent over 20 years as a small business person as well, and I get where you're coming from on that. People do not understand, and some people in this Congress say that nobody's out there shirking it. I mean, you have 7% unemployment. People are desperately trying to get a job. They'd love to go back to work for Steve or whatever, but Steve has to have something to sell to somebody. And so this is a demand issue, and that means people have to have money in their pocket. They have to have things being made and people buying it. That's one of the things about the unemployment insurance. If you help people out to sustain themselves until they get reemployed, for every dollar, it's $1.52 back, to the economy on that. And, I was the local Chamber of Commerce president. I used to tell my colleagues, look, we're talking about our customers here. If they don't have any money, they're not going to be your customer, not going to buy your service or your product on that. So you got to try to keep people afloat, good people who lost their job through no fault of their own, who are trying desperately to get reemployed. Some of them, technology is a great thing, but it also creates problems. So a lot of people lost their job, technology stepped in, and now they have to get retooled. So we have a whole host of things that we need to be doing to get people back to work, but not the least of which is making sure that people have money in their pockets so they can get the basics that they need to sustain their family, which in turn helps our economy.
Well, you and I, we've been around this stuff a long time. So let's not kid ourselves. Politics always plays a role in so many things, but why should politics enter into these people, as Steve said, no fault of their own, lose their jobs, 1.3 million of them. This is their only lifeline, and they've lost it. And yet, you can't get the Senate and maybe Republican, the House, to move on this.
Yeah, I find it so offensive that you have a certain core of the Republicans that'll say, well, people, if they give them unemployment insurance extension, it just won't work. All right, they apparently don't go home and don't go into their workforce centers in their unemployment areas and talk to people on that. It's just, and the thing, I was talking to a friend the other day, I said, it's not just that you don't have the income of your family. That's critical, of course, or whatever. But most of us define ourselves by who we are, what we do.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, if you don't have anything to do, I mean, that's devastating on that. It affects you, and psychologically affects your family on that. So, this whole notion is there. The others, have this phony argument that, we got to pay for it. Fine, then there's a million things we could pay for. I have a bill out there with 250 tax expenditures identified, and if I took just 28 of them, low-hanging fruit, it would be $600 billion a year. I mean, so there's plenty of things out there that were giveaways to corporations and large farms and go right on down the list. So if we wanted to find a pay for, we could. But generally, we've not had to in the past. When it comes to unemployment, 17 times in the last decade or so, we've extended unemployment. And 14 of those times weren't paid for. 5 of them were in George Bush's administration. And people say, look, people are desperate. That's government's job. We stand together and we make sure people have that floor beneath them so that they can sustain their families so they get back on their feet. What happened to that notion in this country?
And the last time the minimum wage was raised under George W. Bush in a bipartisan vote, and here again.
And George Miller, who we were talking about earlier, our friend George Miller, put it on the agenda in our committee, and we put that through when President Obama came on board. We followed through on the equal pay for women. To get rid of the Lilly Ledbetter rule on that. All of those things are just brainless ideas or anything like that. Why shouldn't women get paid, equally with the male counterparts? Why shouldn't we have a minimum wage that gives people enough to bring them out of poverty? These are, I think, questions that we're debating that used to be bipartisan in nature. When we say to people, look, obviously we have to have people that are doing well enough to be alive and well and have a quality of life.
Well, I'll tell you, Congressman, as much as we will miss George Miller and Jim Moran, I'm glad you're still there fighting a good fight.
Thank you. So I appreciate that to be in that company, I'll tell you.
We're counting on you, and that's even more responsibility on your shoulders.
It gives us something to get up every day for.
Thank you,
Thanks
Bill.
so much
I
for
really
coming
enjoyed
in,
it, Congressman.
Thanks.
I'll be back with today's quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
And on this Wednesday, January 15, my parting shot for today, I've said it before, I'll say it again, we need 100 senators like Bernie Sanders. He's a leader on so many issues, now leading the way on NSA. Last week, Senator Sanders shook things up by writing a letter to the NSA saying one simple question: are you spying on me? But get this. NSA answered him yesterday, and their answer was, we can't tell you whether we're spying on you or not because To do so would violate your right of privacy. That is laugh out loud funny, but notice they don't deny it, which means, yes, we are spying on you. Yes, we are violating your privacy, but we won't tell you because that might get us in more trouble and piss other senators off like we pissed off Angela Merkel. Well, Senator Sanders has introduced legislation to ban the wholesale collection of phone records without a warrant from the courts. His exchange with NSA proves why we need that legislation. President Obama, are you listening? That's my parting shot. Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota joins us in studio tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday. See you back here again.
This is the Bill Press Show.